Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Washing Dishes. I'm going to do some veg prep, and today we're going to make vinaigrette. We're going to make 3 different kinds of vinaigrette. We're going to do a balsamic, an Italian, and a cilantro lime, and we're going to make a salad. I've been trying to eat healthier. Salad's a good way to do that, and vinaigrettes are a really wonderful way to add all kinds of great variety of flavor and different, kind of themes to what can be just a kind of boring pile of vegetables. So stick around, hang out. I'm going to finish this veg prep, and then we'll hop in on the actual, recipes and stuff for it. Although I should say, I'm only kind of providing recipes here because, vinaigrettes are very much a ratio thing. You want a certain ratio of vinegar to oil to seasonings to other stuff, etc. So we'll talk about that as we go, but I just wanted to be clear up front that the recipes that I'm going to provide are only kind of recipes. Oh, also, shallots are a really great way to get onion flavor into your salads without getting quite so much like onion punchy, sharp, kickiness. And I'm going to store these in a mason jar of water, which will kind of mellow them out even more. But yeah, shallots. Use them more often. They're really delicious, and they don't get as much love as they should in American cooking. They show up all over the place in French recipes, though. One of the most common ingredients in any vinaigrette is minced garlic. So I'm just going to use my food processor, my mom's 40-year-old food processor. Like, literally, this thing's older than I am, and it still works, except for a little issue that we're not going to talk about. But yeah, I'm going to I'm going to essentially mince a bunch of garlic so that I just have it handy, and it'll last in the fridge in an airtight container for anywhere between 1 to 2 weeks, just kind of depending how often you go into it. It's better than the jar of minced garlic you can buy at the grocery store. If you use a lot of garlic, this might be worth the effort. Alright, our first vinaigrette is going to be balsamic vinaigrette. I'm starting with about a tablespoon of Dijon mustard, about the same amount of our minced garlic, salt and pepper, of course, because salt and pepper go in everything. And we're just going to whisk those into a paste to combine. I'm going to do this entire vinaigrette in real time without speeding anything up so that you can see how quickly it comes together. So this is about 3 to 4 ounces of balsamic vinegar. It's what I had left in my bottle, and that's what I'm using as my basis. So this is going to be my 1 part vinegar, and then we're going to add approximately 1.5 to 2 parts oil, and I'm going to use a mixture of extra virgin olive oil and vegetable canola oil. And we're going to stream this in very slowly. You can see I've just got a little stream coming out, and I'm going to whisk the entire time. And what we're doing here is building an emulsion. We're mixing oil and water by aggressively whisking them, which breaks them down into small particles. Those particles get coated by the emulsifiers in the mustard and garlic, and it makes the oil and water stick to each other, even though they don't particularly like to do that kind of thing. If you ever want a really great explanation of emulsions, there's an episode of Alton Brown's Good Eats called Sweet Emulsion about mayonnaise, and he has an absolutely spectacular explanation and visual aid for it. Strongly recommend. You can probably find it online somewhere, maybe a clip on YouTube. Just Google it. I trust your abilities. So, like I said, I'm doing a mixture of extra virgin olive oil and canola oil for 2 reasons. One, I don't want to get a really strong olive oil flavor. And 2, extra virgin olive oil is expensive. And canola oil is significantly less expensive. You can see the difference in the size of those 2 bottles. Those 2 bottles cost me about the same amount of money. So, it hasn't been very long. we're tasting, we're adjusting for seasoning. And friends, we've got some beautiful balsamic vinaigrette. This is enough for somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 4 salads. And once it's ready, it can be stored in a airtight container. I love mason jars. And it can be stored in an airtight container in a fridge for easily 2 weeks, up to a month probably. With a low volume like this, you're going to have more of it exposed to the air. Also, you can see, look how beautifully creamy that is. And this is just oil, vinegar, mustard, garlic seasonings. Next up, we've got a classic Italian vinaigrette. And I'm going to do this with super, super low tech, easy technique. Nothing fancy. I'm using this little cutting board. I'm using a little utility knife that I bought at the Asian grocery store near me that I just kind of keep around for stuff. And I'm using it to slice up some parsley. And I'm just going for like a rough chop. You just want to break it up a little bit. It doesn't need to be like super well chopped. You totally could like fine mince it, but I'm not going to. That's going to go into our mason jar, and we're going to build this entire vinaigrette in this mason jar without any other tools. About a tablespoon or so of Dijon mustard. This is some dried oregano. We're going to put about a teaspoon of that in, crushed up as much as we can. Again, like the parsley, you don't need to be super precise. Tablespoon of garlic, and you can see our ratios here are pretty similar to the ratios for our balsamic. We're making a little bit more of it, so I'm using a little bit more of each thing. Now I'm going to fill the jar just a little bit with some red wine vinegar and give it a vigorous shake. And then I'm going to add the rest of our vinegar, and I'm just doing this to kind of get a paste going, and so the solids dissolve into the vinegar better. And another vigorous shake, this time on camera and in frame. And now it's time to add our oil. And I'm going to add all of my oil in one fell swoop. We're going to fill it a little bit less than 3/4 of the way full. And we're going to do about a third olive oil. For that oil, we're doing about a third olive oil and 2/3 canola oil. And you can see it's just about, it's like a little less than, or a little more than 3/4 of the way. I filled it a little too much. You can see I've got a third vinegar, and then 2/3 oil. 1 part vinegar to 2 parts oil is a pretty standard vinaigrette ratio. And now it's nice and emulsified. We'll give it a quick taste and adjust for seasonings, and then easy peasy lemon squeezy, you've got beautiful Italian vinaigrette. Again, mason jar, fridge, 2 to 4 weeks, yada, yada, yada. And now it's time for the most complicated one in terms of both ingredients and equipment. We're going to use a blender to make cilantro lime vinaigrette. I've added some fresh oregano, and now I'm adding some fresh cilantro. Stems and all, the stems and leaves on cilantro taste the same, and since it's going into the blender, the texture isn't going to be a concern. And we're going pretty heavy on the cilantro. I like my vinaigrette to taste like cilantro. We're doing most of a jalapeno. I'm just stopping when I get to the part where it's a lot of seeds because I don't need that much spice and I don't want to deal with the seeds. We're going to add half of a shallot, just straight in, dice, not even like barely diced up. I'm just making a few slices and then throwing it right in. This one is going to get a lot of garlic. That's probably close to 3 tablespoons, maybe an ounce or so. And then I have the absolute worst luck with dry mustard. I just cannot, for the life of me, not make a mess with it. I'm just going to start pre-measuring it instead of doing it on camera. You guys have seen me make a mess with dry mustard enough. So let's clean that up real quick. All right, anyway. So here's some really, really terrible camera work on my part. I'm zesting a couple of limes. You can't see me doing it. I didn't think about the fact that the top of the blender was out of frame. I apologize. So let's just hurry through the zesting part, and then we'll get to the part where I squeeze them, and then we'll get to the part where you can actually see what's going on. Well, you can see a little bit better, but there's another problem going on that's definitely going to be apparent in a minute. But anyway, I'm adding most of my vinegar. I've added about 8 ounces so far, and I'm just going to, again, blend this to get the paste going, except the blender's not plugged in. Hang on a sec, let me fix that. Alright, much better. Now that it's working, we can stream in our oil through the top of the blender, and once we've got it on high, that's pretty much what we're going to do. And we're basically just going to go back and forth, vinegar, oil, oil, vinegar, vinegar, oil, until it's the correct flavor and consistency. Again, I'm not measuring this. I'm doing it by eye, I'm doing it by taste, and doing it by texture. The ratio on this ended up being about 1 part vinegar to a little more than 1.5 parts oil. That's just how it worked out to be at the point where the flavor, texture, and everything was what I wanted it to be. Don't worry too much about getting measurements exact, especially on vinaigrette. Worry about making it taste good and have the right texture, and your product will end up being better in general than if you had slavishly followed the recipes. At this point, the flavor and texture are correct, and I just want to make more of this. So I've added the rest of the vinegar. I'm adding some more oil to even that out. I'm going to add some seasoning, and we're going to have really a fair amount of this vinaigrette. I'm giving some of it away to a friend. I used a bunch of it in meal prep this week. But yeah, you can make a lot of vinaigrette fairly cheaply and fairly easily, provided you've got a blender or you're willing to put in the elbow grease. Okay, making salads is not complicated. Don't forget to salt and pepper the greens, mix that around, add your veggies, add your dressing. Okay, adding the dressing is the trick. You don't want to just dump your dressing on top of your salad. You can see I'm spooning it around the outside, and then when I go to toss the salad, I'm bringing the dressing into the middle by kind of swiping around the outside and tossing the greens and veggies around and over each other. If you just dump it on top, it'll weigh down the salad, you won't get even coating, it won't be as good. So, take an extra 5 seconds, start with it around the edges. This is just some roasted chicken breast that I'm going to use as protein because this salad is going to be dinner, and I would like it to be a bit heartier than usual. I also have too much veggies in here for like a normal restaurant portion of salad, but I'm making this for myself for dinner, so do what you want. All right, so I've got about a third of the salad. I'm laying that on the plate and just kind of letting it fluff. And then I'm doing another third of the salad and laying that on the plate and letting it fluff. And then the last third is going to have most of the toppings in it. So I'm going to make sure I get all of those. And you can see how like fluffy and stacked up this salad is, so that when it gets weighed down by the chicken, it doesn't like, it's not just like a mushy pile of greens. Like, it has body, it has volume, it has like height on the plate and looks delicious. Wonderful salad beauty shot before I taste it. And yeah, I like cheese on my salads. It just, feta cheese doesn't photograph well, so I'm adding it now. But yeah, time to taste. All right, so we already tasted the vinaigrette. I like all of these veggies. We knew this was going to taste good. So I guess really the only purpose of this tasting montage... Montage? Is this a montage? I guess it's just a shot. But yeah, the only purpose of this tasting shot is laughing with a salad. You've got to laugh with a salad, right? Anyway, salads are delicious. Vinaigrette's super easy. I hope you give these a try. Thanks for watching.
Hey, thanks for staying till the end. I really appreciate it. If you like that, check out a couple of these other videos. They're probably up your alley too.